We have some breaking news as reports have just dropped revealing that the Leafs have some new targets and they could be from the team that eliminated them in the playoffs this season. So to break down those reports and discuss what the players are and what potential moves the Leafs could make this offseason. Stay tuned for all that in this episode of Leafs Digest. Before we do, a quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the 80% who are not subscribed and you want to help us towards our goal of 10,000 subscribers, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to Darius and I. And thank you guys for your continued support. But Darius, let's just get right into the video today. So there's a lot to discuss. So this was dropped by the fourth period saying futures of DeBrusk Ullmark is in question in Boston. And this was followed up by the Leafs are expected to be one of the handful of teams in the race to sign Bruins forward Jake DeBrusk this summer, of course from TFP. So we'll just start with this. We'll get into some of the other reports after and what the actual players are. We kind of got a sneak peek here. But it seems like the Leafs could be looking to get a couple of the guys that eliminated them this postseason on the Bruins.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting. And if you're a Leafs fan, getting Jake DeBrusk is kind of like getting Brad Marchand in a way, like a guy who's, snake bitten your team for so many years. But I think he'd be a really good addition to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think this only happens if a couple dominoes don't fall in the Leafs' favor. Like if Tyler Bertuzzi were to sign somewhere else or the Leafs just couldn't make the money or term work for him, I could see Jake DeBrusk as being a great option if he wants to come to Toronto. I've always loved what he's done in the playoffs, and he's not going to ask for a terribly big cap hit with multiple years or anything like that. He's obviously, creeping towards 30 and getting a little bit older. So Jake DeBrusk would be a very interesting ad for the Leafs. He's exactly where they want to go, I think, that type of player. Nothing flashy in the regular season, will still put up points for you, but I really like what he does in the playoffs. So I think it would be pretty cool. But again, it's going to be really weird if he ends up committing to the Leafs because obviously the Bruins have eliminated the Leafs in game sevens the last 4 times in a row, and he's been crucial for the Bruins in that.
Yeah, and this just dropped, obviously, because the Bruins only got eliminated a couple of days ago, and very interesting. Jake DeBrusk, you mentioned it would be kind of a fun addition there, and then Ullmark is another one we'll get into question in a minute, but you can see this tweet here saying, from Williston saying, Treliving will prioritize bringing back Bertuzzi, but if it doesn't work out, DeBrusk feels like a likely backup option. Similar point totals during the regular season, and like Bertuzzi, always seems to step up his play during the playoffs. Definitely plays a Treliving and Berube hockey style too, so yeah, you kind of mentioned it there. It would be an interesting replacement for Tyler Bertuzzi if I guess Bertuzzi prices himself out of Toronto or doesn't want to be in Toronto, and then depending on what DeBrusk is getting in the open market, and you can see it here, 40 points in 80 games, and again, he's not going to be a first liner necessarily or a guy who puts up a ton of points, but Darius, he's such a valuable player to say, especially come playoff time, and the tweet mentioned it here. Definitely seems like a Berube type player if I've ever seen one, and so does Tyler Bertuzzi, but this guy, he's done some winning as well.
He has, and I think it would be a pretty good addition, like I said. And like you're seeing here on screen, like he's a half a point a game player, right? So he's going to get that for you in the regular season, maybe put up 40 points, 50 points. Like he's usually good for something like that. But when you look over at the playoffs, even this year, 11 points in 13 games, like this guy gets it done in the playoffs. He's always around it, even in series or years where they lose in 7 games or they don't play as many games. He's getting like half a point a game, which in the playoffs, the Leafs have a hard time scoring. And this is a guy who can do that, and he's always in and around it. So I think it would be a good addition. If you wanted to come to Toronto and Bertuzzi doesn't work out, because I think you do look at signing Bertuzzi first, I think Jake DeBrusk would be something very interesting because like you're seeing here, the cap hit wouldn't be something crazy. Maybe he's going to ask for a bit of a raise, but the Leafs are going to have to sign somebody like Bertuzzi, let's say, to $5 or $6 million anyway. So I think Jake DeBrusk would be a very interesting option.
Yeah, and obviously, you see the cap hit here, $4 million. We've kind of been discussing Bertuzzi in the $5 to $6 million range over however many years, maybe a 5-year, $6 million contract, something like that. And I'll ask you quickly before we get into Ullmark a little bit, and obviously you can see here, he said that and essentially thought it would be done, still hopes the deal is possible. Who would you prefer between Tyler Bertuzzi and Jake DeBrusk, given what we know about both of them, and of course the intangibles that come with it? We only seen 1 year Tyler Bertuzzi as a Leaf, but who would you rather, given in the option, assuming all things are equal, maybe a bit of a salary difference in the years in the AAV?
Well, now that I know that this is available, I think it's very interesting. I don't know if I prefer it over Bertuzzi, but I think DeBrusk might be a bit cheaper. I could be wrong on that, but I think he might be a cheaper option, and he's been very consistent in what he does. I think that's the number one thing. He's really consistent. But I liked what Tyler Bertuzzi brought, especially in the second half, and I think I'm excited to see if he does resign what the new coaching staff would be able to do with him, because they're going to try different things. It's just the fact of the matter. So I would lean towards Bertuzzi because I know what we have in him. I don't know what DeBrusk looks like on the Leafs. So I'm going to lean towards Bertuzzi, I think, I think they should take a shot at re-signing him. I think he can still be very good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what any of these players look like under the Craig Berube system anyway, so it might be interesting to see what kind of happens with that. But let's touch on Ullmark a little bit here, and you can see the Leafs along with 6 other teams are all expected to pursue Linus Ullmark in the coming weeks. We might have a full video on this in the future, but Darius, Ullmark's a very interesting one, and we talk about goaltending all the time and how we need goaltending. Linus Ullmark is a guy that is a very, very good goaltender. Unfortunately, he was stuck behind Jeremy Swayman, who is one of the now, seems like at least the elite playoff goaltenders in his first year in the league. But what are your thoughts on this? Ullmark, interesting guy.
Very, very interesting. But I think the one thing for me in that statement, at least, is there's 6 other teams involved, which lends to, the belief that the Leafs probably won't get him because they're in the same division, same conference, and usually those things don't go down. So who are the 6 other teams, right? If they're out of conference, I think that, the Bruins would rather trade with them. Like, why, if you're the Bruins, would you give the Leafs Ullmark, right? He's a very good option, and the salary cap is nothing crazy because he's still under contract until the end of next season. So when I see that, I'm a little skeptical because of the deal the Leafs would have to put together. I think they would have to get really creative for the Bruins to trade him in division. So, but it would be great. It would fix a problem immediately. And like I said, his cap hit only $5 million. You would only have to eat that for 1 more year, and you can make it work. You have salary coming off the books too. So I think it would be a great option. A lot of people have mentioned it. I just don't know if it happens because of the Bruins being in the same division, but we'll dive into it in another video for sure. And as things progress and maybe some teams drop out, we'll see what the Leafs have to offer for that.
Yeah, and we obviously know that if you think back to the deadline, Linus Ullmark was almost traded. He was supposed to be one of the guys that was actually going to get traded at the deadline. The Bruins ultimately decided to keep him, and whether or not that was a good decision probably wasn't now. And if you think about it in the eyes of the Bruins, because they obviously didn't make it fair in the playoffs, and he didn't play in the playoffs aside from the Leafs in Game 2, but yeah, Ullmark is an interesting one. I mean, the goaltending situation for the Leafs is one that we're obviously going to have videos on, but it's a very important conversation to have. We think about Markstrom, we think about Ullmark, you think about the guys who are available via trade. You probably wouldn't trade Mitch Marner to the Bruins in any circumstance. It would be a different package to get Ullmark. But when you're talking about potential goaltending, Marner's the big guy that could be traded out the other way to get a package back, including a goaltender. I don't think that's the case here. I think maybe they're exploring their options with some of their other prospects, not named Easton Cowan, and maybe they'll try to see what the Bruins want. Maybe it's a switch of players, because at this point, it's probably unlikely. The Leafs are probably the least likely out of these 6 teams to get Ullmark because of what you just mentioned, as well as I think that the Leafs might have other options and other plans in mind. If they plan to trade Mitch Marner, they could get another, not necessarily better goalie, but one that fits better with their current team, along with a package of other players.
Yeah, I think it's that. And Marner for Ullmark wouldn't work. It would be a different package. It just wouldn't work. Not in terms of skill or that Ullmark is not worth that. It's the Leafs would never send Mitch Marner in division. It's similar to what I just said with the Ullmark going to the Leafs. I think the Bruins would put the Leafs last on the list in teams that they want to trade him to, right? So based on that, I think, Marner wouldn't be going the other way, but that doesn't mean Marner might not go the other way for another goaltender, right? So just in this situation. So I think it's interesting the Leafs are in on him. I think the Leafs should be in on him. They should be looking at all available goaltenders because they have to fix that position. So it's pretty interesting, but I just don't know how likely it is that they get that specific goaltender.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Do you want DeBrusk on the Leafs? Do you want Ullmark on the Leafs? Let us know. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 10,000. We'll see you tomorrow.